Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jimmy. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a topic I've been sitting on for a very long time. I hope this helps you. These are my 5 tips that I use to get myself out of a creative rut when it comes to photography. If you're anything like me, I hope this can help you. My first tip that can really help you, and I know it helps me, is kind of counterintuitive. When you're stuck in a rut, some of us just go ahead and buy more things to get more resources. But I'm going to recommend that you limit 2 things. Limit your time and your location. Your time, what I mean by that is to not have all day to do it. Not have all day to go out and take pictures. Not have all week go on an expedition just to take pictures. We're all very busy, right? So let's say that instead of all day, we kind of limit our time to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours if you have it. We're all extremely booked up for time, so it's easier to say, not today. It's easier to say, I won't take pictures until I have a whole day off. Well, how often does that happen these days? We're all working our butts off, right? So if we say to ourselves, I have a little bit of time, I'm going to carve out a window for myself to just be creative, just to have fun, to remember what it's like to be outdoors or a different location inside of your apartment, for example, if you have a very little bit amount of time, just to get that shutter button going, to work out that muscle of being creative in a very short amount of time. And will you get great shots? Probably not. You might, but it's not a guarantee, but at least you're doing something. And that is that snowball effect we're looking for when it comes to creative motivation. So I think that first tip when it comes to limiting your time is very important. It lets yourself off the hook. It doesn't give you any more pressure. It's an hour and a half. It's like a Netflix comedy special. Time to just go out there and have fun. But you're also not letting yourself off the hook too much because you're committing to doing something for that short amount of time, something that you've been shying away from because you feel like you don't have enough time to begin with. Well, it proves to you that you can do it in a very short amount of time. You also want to limit your location. This is part B of my first technique of how to get creatively juiced again. Limit your location. You want to find a place that you're used to going to, or maybe a new location. If you don't have a lot of time, like I mentioned, maybe indoors, just not your bedroom, because the bed's there, you're gonna fall asleep. So some place it's interesting, but don't go to different locations. Don't go chasing every shiny thing that you see, right? Choose one place, that one tree, that one area by the pool, for example, by that park district, wherever it is, that one space on your walk that you go on every morning. Bring your camera, carve out some time, and this is where you're gonna plant your butt. This is where you're gonna take some pictures. They could be good pictures, they could be bad pictures, but you can't find yourself in a groove or some flow if you're constantly moving around. So pick one. Really experiment with some functions, experiment with your positioning, experiment with your perspective, experiment with shooting through a leaf or some grass, going high and low. There's many things you can do, but you won't find those ideas if you don't dig yourself into one specific area and time. Here's tip number 2 if you're lacking on that motivation to go ahead and start shooting again. Use an accessory that you have sitting around. I don't mean bring every accessory, because that can often weigh us down. It's very overwhelming to have everything with you. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about, yes? Man, I have all this stuff with me that I've purchased. I gotta use it all, right? It doesn't work like that, at least not for me. So it oftentimes bogs me down and it gets me thinking too much, and you end up using barely any of it, right? So go ahead through your drawers and find that one accessory. Perhaps it's just that one lens. It doesn't even have to be a good lens. Let's say that one day you grab your camera body and say, there's that one crappy lens I don't really like. You might end up loving it. Use that one lens and get creative with it. After all, that's all you have for the hour and a half in that one location for that very specific amount of time. That one lens could be something that you thought was a bad lens, but now is your favorite lens because now you've dedicated some time and you don't have another choice. You're stuck out there with that one lens. So that might be very useful and very idea inspiring when it comes to creativity. Another accessory that you can bring that I would recommend, other than like an ND filter perhaps that you have sitting around, maybe a tripod that you don't really use because you're afraid of working it or dragging it around. Maybe you can bring one of those cheap plastic small tripods that are pretty sturdy that you got for free one time. Bring that. That can give you a totally different perspective, right? So what I'm saying is look through your shelves, pick that one thing that you thought, well, this is interesting, I haven't used this in a while. What if all you had was that and your camera? Perhaps you get some really cool shots when you're not bogged down thinking about all the accessories you have with you. My third tip is to go ahead and use one function in your camera and just focus on that for the entirety of the window you've carved out for yourself in that one location. So I make videos when it comes to mirrorless cameras, specifically the Fuji X-T1, X-T2, XE, whatever. You guys may have noticed that I pick on one thing and I dive maybe a little too deep into that one function. And the reason why I do that is because I'm always amazed at how it's interconnected with other functions. I always kind of see where the rabbit hole goes when it comes to that one function. To some people, this shutter knob here on the camera is just a way to adjust to get good exposure, to get a nicely, sharply timed image, for example. Yes, it can do that, but give this same camera, this same knob to another person, and they might interpret it completely differently, depending on the day, depending on their mood. For example, they might use it to blur a picture intentionally. They might use it to underexpose and overexpose an image. Yeah, with this one knob here. So what can you do with all the functions on your camera within the menu, right? You can experiment with portrait photography. You can experiment with autofocusing or manual focusing techniques. Just pick one technique, perhaps a highlighting method of focusing. You can do that with your fingers. And you get a truer, better understanding of how your camera works, where that is in the menu, and how it responds to your hands, and whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, I encourage you to just stick with it for that period of time in that one location. It might lead to more thoughts about how you feel about that camera in general and how much you love this newfound function that you're trying to mess with. So if you are struggling to be motivated and you think, oh, it's just the same old camera. Well, do you know everything about the camera? Perhaps you can watch a video about one specific function that I have and say, you know what? I know this function. I think I know it better now. But what if I played with it for an hour and a half and just that? You can choose a knob, you can choose a button in your camera, and I do this all the time. I kind of use that as a springboard to get more creative ideas. Again, we're restricting ourselves once again. My fourth tip is to bring a model or a prop with you when you go on shooting expeditions, or if you're going to shoot just for an hour and a half or so. If you have a model to come with you who also expresses an interest in photography, why not bring them? You guys can review photos together and have a good time. But if you bring your camera and have that one thing with you and you're ready to do my suggestions, well, you go to an area, you just start taking the same old pictures every single time. Well, there's a tree, there's a field, there's the sun. How many times you've taken this picture? I've seen this picture a million times in my own portfolio. So I'm done taking that picture, right? What do you do to really mix it up? Bring something with you. Just one thing. Perhaps it's a toy. Perhaps it's an old tattered up t-shirt, for example. Perhaps it's a something that's sitting in your desk. I have this old wooden hand that has articulating fingers. I could bring that, stick it in the ground, and now you have something of interesting that looks interesting, that pulls the viewer's attention, especially your attention, right? A person who feels down in the dumps when it comes to creativity, well, now you have something that's interesting, that plays with the light. You're not just taking a picture of the field anymore, or people, for example. If you're sick and tired of that, bring something from home. Bring a watch, bring some jewelry. Be careful with that. Don't lose it out there. Bring photography equipment that looks kind of cool. One time I was in a coffee shop and I didn't have anything to take pictures of. And I've taken pictures of people at coffee shops before, but now I want to take pictures of something close up, like a lens cap. So I took my Fuji lens cap on the table, I started taking pictures of that, rotating it, letting it play with the light that was kind of streaming through the windows. I got a lot of great shots from that, and I was really proud of that moment because I proved to myself it has nothing to do with fancy anything, great setup. It's all about how you interpret the moment, right? So if you have something small, even I think like an old shoe, for example, you can bring that and stick it somewhere on the sidewalk. That's your location, and now you got something of interest that you can take pictures of. And I think that'll really get your juices flowing when it comes to creativity. My fifth tip I want to share with you guys when it comes to getting yourself out of a rut creatively when it comes to photography is to tell yourself, I'm going to take some bad shots now. I'm not saying to convince yourself. Self-talk is very powerful. I'm not saying to tell yourself I'm a bad photographer. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying You know what? Let's take some crappy shots right now. You have a digital camera. You have a digital source, let's see, a memory card. It's not film, most likely. A lot of you do shoot film, actually, but I don't anymore. So why are we hoarding the space, right? Especially if you're not doing video at the moment. Take 20 awful shots. Just go ahead and start working that muscle, that mental muscle to say, you know what, I'm not going to get perfect shots every single time. I'm not going to get that masterful shot right off the bat. We're going to take some warm-up shots, just like an athlete warms up before a game, just like a guitarist before trying to create a song may just strum the strings really hard in a cacophonous manner and just make terrible music for about half an hour. I remember when I first took violin when I was really young. I can't play violin, never was able to. I'll never forget the thing that the violin instructor told me. He said, to the whole class, he said, when you pick up the violin, make as much bad noise as you possibly can. I never really truly understood what he meant, and I was thinking that maybe he meant get that out of your system. Really explore how it sounds, and then the creative juices can flow. You've forgiven yourself that you're not a perfectionist person. Or maybe you are a perfectionist person, but you're not going to get perfect shots every single time, right? We all want to do a good job. We all want to get great results, but even professional photographers don't get perfect shots every single time. Guys, I have been on many professional shoots, and I have to tell you, they're okay. They're good photographers because they take a lot of shots. I believe when Wayne Gretzky and Michael Jordan talk about this all the time. It's all about how many shots you take, right? You gotta take a lot of them, and eventually you get one great shot. Or two great shots, for example. These professional photographers that I've worked with, they have assistants. Do you have an assistant? I don't. They adjust lighting every 5 seconds. They redo the shots every 10 seconds. They show it to the client, and the client shakes his head. No, that sucks. Do it again. And they have to redo it, and eventually they narrow it down to the way the shot needs to be for the ad campaign or whatever it may be. So what I'm saying is, they're not perfect, and they're professionals. Why do we expect to be perfect? So go ahead and take pictures when you first start out, especially when you're first on location. Tell yourself, I'm going to take 20 bad shots. Just get your finger moving. Work on that muscle, that mental muscle of all things to get going to take pictures. And don't do this. What I find myself doing, I don't do this anymore. Look through the camera and just going, yeah, okay, that looks like a good place. Don't do that. Actually push the button. You'll see what a difference this makes. You'll find yourself actually kind of timid to take a shot because we will only want to take shots of things that look good, right? And that's a problem, guys. We have to kind of say, this picture sucks, that's okay. That picture sucks, that's okay. Eventually, a good shot will come. How do you expect to get good shots if you never take bad shots, right? We're not perfect people, and sometimes we have down moments in our creativity. I hope these 5 tips have truly inspired you to at least take 1 or 2 of them, mix them together, and just get out there in a short amount of time to take a few bad shots. I think you'll be surprised where it might lead you. Thank you so much, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.